Welcome back, everybody. My name's Laura Scott. I'm Sydney office lead and partner at Adaptivate. I'm joined today by Paul Mcnamara, who's one of our co-founders, and he's with us today in the lounge. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Laura.
So we are 8 years old now, coming up to 8 years old, and I'd love to talk about some of the highlights of the past 8 years. A big question, but maybe we start for the first, half of that. What are some of the reasons why you started Adaptivate?
Yeah, look, early on it was seeing the changes that were happening in the industry and how do you get that strategy to execution bit. I really love getting the delivery side of things and seeing the benefits in that. And part of it was growing globally to support some of the largest transformations across the world, supporting some of those multinational companies really deliver those big changes. And so that was one of the real sort of inspirations for growing so fast globally. But also, focusing on delivering that real value as quickly as possible.
Okay. So what were some of the trends that you saw to actually make you start Adaptivate? Like, talk to us about your career and then the point in time where you went, actually, you know what? There's a need here for me to spin up Adaptivate.
Yeah, look, I reckon I've been quite lucky in my career and started off in the early 2000s as a software developer in the world when these tech giants, which we know today, were starting. And the level of disruption in the tech industry was phenomenal. And then went into consulting about 10 years later during sort of the e-commerce / digital transformation trend, which was, again, not just tech companies changing, but B2C, B2B businesses fundamentally changing how they did part of their business. They still had their bricks and mortar and all that sort of stuff, but they still had to go into the digital e-commerce world. And then ran a startup for a couple of years, a SaaS business, which was that that fast-paced, nimble world of venture capital and fast decision making. And as I sort of moved through that, I noticed things are changing even more now. So every company is now facing that level of disruption that the tech industry had in the early 2000s and bricks and mortar had in the e-commerce trend. And I think the biggest difference at the moment is every part of the business is changing. And so you can't sort of get away from that. And so in my strategy days, it was really great to sit down and get the right strategy going. But that strategy lifespan is now shrunk. And so part of what started Adaptivate for was how do you test and learn that strategy as fast as possible? And not sit for hours and days and months and 6 months in a room, but get out there and validate it, because by the time you've finished your strategy paper, the world has changed around you.
Yeah. So what are some of the most exciting points for you at the start of the journey when you were seeing people test and learn? When you started Adaptivate, new clients, this was this agile thing that software did that we brought to business to make it real for business. Was there a pivotal point for some of the clients that you were working with where they had a bit of a aha moment and it's that you can think of?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of it was the motivation for doing this job and traveling the world, seeing clients all over the place is fantastic. Can be tough at times, but some of the motivation is around seeing your clients, seeing just ordinary people working hard on something for a long time and not getting anywhere. And coming in and saying, well, we can change the way you work, get you to think about the problem differently. And it's amazing what can happen sometimes when you put people in an environment where you empower them and you give them the space to be innovative. And, there's many instances, but, one that sort of comes to mind was there was a young lady who was put on our program and was told she was on a performance review. It was the last one. We all know these big programs, you get the ones that nobody wants. And in about 3 months, she was up there presenting at our showcase to the CEO. And the CEO called her out by saying, who's this amazing person who only 3 months ago everyone was thinking should be on a performance plan. So that for me is the motivation and it's why we all come to work. We want to make a difference. We want to make an impact, and allowing and sort of unlocking organizations to do that and letting individuals thrive is pretty motivating.
It is. It's pretty cool, isn't it? So Adaptivate's journey has changed quite dramatically over the past 8 years. We started very agile focused. we've certainly followed a trend. It's what we do as consultants. Where do you think we are now? What are some of the key, like the trends that you're seeing impact business globally?
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, the core offering or the core thing that we do hasn't really changed.
Mm-hmm.
We help organizations move fast, make decisions better, and deliver results faster. Mm-hmm. Early on, agile was the theme or the catalyst for that change. As we moved forward over the years, for a while that ended up being Web3 and blockchain as that catalyst to make the change.
That's right.
And now, I mean, you can't escape it now. Now it is the AI revolution that is causing that change. And one of the big differences, as I sort of hinted on before, of this change is you can't escape it. It's not just one part of the business, it's every part of the business. And a lot of what we focus on is how do you get different parts of the organization working together? And I think that's will become even more important for people to work together. And that sort of level of disruption that is coming and is predicted to come will be pretty game-changing for a lot of people.
Yeah, so let's go there. So I'm seeing a lot of businesses have to shrink now because of AI in different ways. So either through a restructure based on AI coming in to support the business in a different way for the better. From a capability perspective, are there any key trends? So, and I'm pushing on global here because you are working across our whole team. Is there any really big shifts happening globally that you can really pinpoint in the US or Singapore or particularly in Australia?
Yeah, look, what's happening now is, as you rightly say, there's a lot of restructures for many reasons other than just AI. Yeah. Some of the tariffs that are going on, the uncertainty around that, the uncertainty around some of the global trade that's causing. And so there is a nervousness and maybe an opportunity for organizations to get fit for what's coming in the future.
Love it.
And that means sort of, potentially slimming down, but you can't just slim down, you've got to then reinvent the way you do things.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of lessons we can learn from the past on this. This is not hugely different to what went through in the e-commerce business, where we had all these stores out there and everyone, we're going to lose all these branch staff. Everyone's going to go, yes, we did have to contract a bit to get fit. And we didn't know what was coming, but over time, the job started growing again. And the organizations that were able to latch onto that and grow in the right area at the right time, as faster than their peers, are the ones that succeeded. Yeah. So if we think about that and move that across to what's potentially happening in the AI space, yes, we will slim down. There are jobs that AI can do in 10 seconds, which took days for a human to do. So that will contract. We're at the stage, I think now globally, that with all the other global uncertainty, companies are unsure where to go. And so that ability to test and learn faster than your competitor, to me, is going to be the competitive advantage into the future. And especially trying to get the right skill sets. Only if you went back 2 or 3 years ago, everyone was clamoring for data scientists and you couldn't hire one. Developers, you couldn't hire them. Now, only 2 or 3 years later, there's hundreds of jobs, people out there that are looking for jobs, which is, so those that can change faster than their competitors, to me, is going to be that competitive advantage in the future. And we're starting to see that.
And so what industries are you seeing it in? Is there any industry specific globally that you're going, oh, you guys you're on your way further than others?
Look, I think in parts there are certain areas where they are moving faster than others. Okay. So if you think the banking sector with fraud, scams, protection at the moment, they're having to do a lot around that because the speed of deep fakes, the speed of AI in scams is phenomenal. Huge. And so you can say that the banking sector, the ones that are surviving there, and fintechs, etc., are the ones that are reducing their risk of loss. And so, even if you think any of sort of the gaming industry, those sorts of things in the past, they were getting hacks or fraud scams once a year. Now they're getting them once a day.
Yeah, it's wild.
And so they're going to have to change on that.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is sort of on some of those other industries like the energy industry,
mm-hmm.
where the transition to green has now been thrown up in the air by what's happening in the US. So the investment levels are shifting.
Right.
But that still doesn't mean that the efficiencies that we're going through even pre sort of that are still not relevant.
Right.
And they're going to need to get fit and ready for whatever the next transition comes when it comes, because it will come.
It will.
The challenge is when, and knowing when to invest in that is almost impossible.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, no one can predict it. It'll be the ones that can react and action that faster than their competitors are the ones that are going to win.
Yeah, and have a go at it.
Yep.
Not be afraid of it. Just jump in.
And that can be hard. And a lot of these industries that we're talking about are very legacy traditional industries. They've been around for hundreds of years.
They have.
And some of their employees have been around for 30, 40, 50 years. And so getting the confidence to do something different, getting the results fast and know we're on the same trajectory, the right trajectory, is going to be pretty exciting, but also pretty challenging.
Redefining, you spoke about restructuring and redefining roles, and we spoke about specifically the tech industry. Can we talk more about, we're working with oil and gas in the States. Can you talk about the way in which some of the roles over there are being redefined? Yeah,
look, I think as we look at that tech space, so to speak, right, there's a level of automation that's going to be required. So, having manual labor out there doing the repetitive tasks will go away, both with AI and robotics.
Yes.
That is coming. There is benefits of that in productivity, but there is also huge benefit of that in safety.
Right.
And so not putting humans in confined spaces, working at heights with dangerous materials is an advantage both for productivity, but also for safety and operational efficiency.
Incredible, yeah. Yep. And I think something too that although some people, companies are scared of automation, exactly to your point, safety, that's a game changer as well. So Paul, let's dig into your career. You've had a very huge career. You've spanned multiple parts of the world, multiple industries. What are some key highlights for you personally, or and the journey that you went on?
Yeah, look, I think early on for me, I was very lucky. Got a job with Bell Labs, who's known as one of the innovators of the last century.
Okay.
And
what was your role there?
So role was a software developer working in the research and development department, coming up with new technologies like encrypted voice over IP,
wow, cool.
New video technologies.
Is this where you did the background of the...
Yes.
Okay. Tell us a bit more about that.
So you know when you go Zoom or Teams these days that you can change your background to
Indeed,
whatever it is, so you can cover whatever's in the backyard. I invented the patent for that.
Right.
Back in early 2000s.
Well done.
So that was a bit of a highlight, well used, which was
in COVID
very good.
Now still.
And definitely hides the messy background at the working from home.
Nice. And so you're at Bell, and then where to from there? What are some key highlights that you think, if you were to talk to your kids about, or write your book, what are some key highlights that you'd go, these are some real lessons that I learned along the way? Yeah,
look, as I said, with working with such tradition around and Bell Labs, etc., I was very lucky to work with some of the smartest people around, and it's quite a great thing for me in my career. I've tried to put myself in the room when I'm not the smartest person in the room, because I love to learn and I love to work with others. And so a lot of the brainstorming, the innovation we did with sort of small groups back in those days to come up with those new ideas like the video backgrounds, etc., was pretty inspiring. And I sort of was lucky enough to be able to follow that through to my next sort of big change in my career, which was with the Boston Consulting Group.
Right.
And again, working with some of the smartest minds around in small teams to solve really complex, challenging problems. And I think what I started to realize more and more as I went throughout my career is, I love solving problems, but even more than
you're very good at it.
But even more than solving problems, I love seeing them put into action and see the benefits of those realized. And so that's when I started, if you think more of the traditional consulting is solving the problems and handing it over, I realized that what I love more is working with people to then implement and realize the benefits of those recommendations. Number one, to see if your recommendations actually work, right? But also the ability to iterate those and learn more. Like learn from your own mistakes. You make hundreds of mistakes when you think you've got the right strategy, but as you go test it, you start to learn more and more and more. And so for me, that was one of the sort of the big shifts I sort of had in my career, from somebody loving to sit down and program to 2-3 a.m. in the morning solving problems to actually working with people and getting others to help solve and implement the problems with me, because I didn't have all the answers. Nice. And I think for me, that's getting even more and more now. And in my role now, being able to travel the world globally and work with our teams all around the world, I get to spend a lot of time in deep with those teams, solving problems, really working with them, working with not just our team, but some amazing clients around the world to not just implement the changes, but stay around to see the value that's being delivered. So it's been a lot more rewarding for me.
That's great. And having worked with you for the past 6 years, you are absolutely one of the best at activating and embedding whatever we do. So you've certainly taught me a lot, and I know you teach our team a lot. We're lucky enough to take the team to offsites and seeing you in the room with the team, coaching and in pushing them to get to that next, word or understand truly what we are trying to teach them. But you sit down and you spend the time with the team, which is really fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's talk about the team. What are some of the what are some of the cool projects that the team are doing with you at the moment?
Yeah, look, I think we are very lucky that the work we get to do is very impactful for not just the organization's work, for the people that we're working with. So whether it be, launching new digital products and trying to work out, well, how do you do that in a space where you've got a legacy products and trying to get them working at the same time, and that's pretty challenging.
And so what are our team doing there?
So a lot of what we do is, again, understanding what that strategy is. Okay. So getting everyone on the same page of what are we trying to do? What are the important things we all have to do? And when I say we, the way I like to work and has worked that since BCG is an integrated client team.
Love it.
And so when we go in to solve the problem, it's getting everyone on the same page on what the most important thing is to solve. And that also means usually the stakeholders around as well. Right. So one of those things I look at is there's two parts of a successful delivery. One is, are you working on the right stuff? Have you got the right strategy? And then can you execute that at pace? Right. And finding the right balance between the two of those, to me, is the bit of the art that we're trying to perfect. Okay. Because as I sort of alluded to before, you can spend hours and hours and hours on strategy, have the best strategy in the world. But if you can't execute it, doesn't matter.
It's a good draw liner.
But also the reverse is true. You can be the best executor, delivery person in the world. If you're not working on the right problem, also doesn't matter. So how do you find that right balance between the two and cycle between them? And that's the hard bit, because if we all knew the answers, we just go do it. Yeah. We don't. And so that's some of the things that I personally get motivation out of. And that speed to be able to do that, to me, is something which we pride ourselves on.
So Adaptivate, in the next 2 years, what does it look like?
Yeah, so I think first part of the growth plans for us is we've got an amazing footprint across the globe to support our global clients. There's a level of, makes it hard sometimes when you're below that scale in each office. Yeah. So a lot of the focus over the next year really is to grow the scale in each office. To be able to have, yes, the diversity, the opportunities for the team, and also being able to, bring more interesting, diverse team members on, which would be fantastic. Yep. And then the year after that, to me, is we all know, AI is coming, and a lot of what we do today will be replaced by AI, even as consultants. So what do we need to do to adapt to that. And a lot of that is, yes, continuing to what we do. People are still going to be needed around that. The outcomes for AI are still going to be consumed by people, are going to be needed to work together with different people, parts of the organization. So that's still a relevant part. Mm-hmm. But it will require more components to come together. Mm-hmm. So what we've looked at saying, well, we partner with maybe more with technology organizations, with companies like Enterprise AI, mm-hmm. to provide that backbone to help us do that at pace. Mm-hmm. So I think the network or partner network will have to become a lot bigger, mm-hmm. because you won't be able to deliver a lot of this stuff by yourself.
Agree.
And so that to me is an exciting part for Adaptivate, because over the last 7 years, we've been able to do things with 1 or 2 partners here and there, but not at the scale I think we're going to need to do. And we're actually starting to see that already.
Yeah. So I completely agree with you. And it's really nice to have a different entry point into different markets. I was only talking to a software provider the other day, and the need for people consulting and us coming in to help solve a problem and potentially optimize processes, people prior to them implementing a software. It was such an exciting conversation. So there is certainly a space for us in the future, but we do need to be playing at that top 20%.
Yeah. Yes. And that's a lot of the challenge, right? We were able to help clients with what we knew. That's not going to be good enough by itself anymore. And so I'm quite excited also to learn from these other partners, learn what they're doing, learn what problems they're solving, how they're approaching these problems. And none of them have the solution of even us, but the ability to have a greater diversity in the room to solve those problems in the future is, to me, quite exciting.
I agree. And partners are certainly welcoming the conversation, which is nice. So Paul, you spend a lot of time on planes, going from, Sydney to the US, and then Sydney to Singapore. What are you doing on the planes for so long?
Most of the time it's just sleep.
Okay.
Catching up on sleep is the number one priority.
And eating on planes, or no? Just get
Try
on,
not to.
Sleep
and go.
Okay, good work. Jet lag, how do you do with that?
Exercise.
Okay.
To me, exercise is probably the key, and then getting back on the whatever time zone you're at with food and sunlight.
Okay.
There's a lot to that. But for me, if you're not keeping fit, you just can't do it. So exercise to me is probably one of the key things.
You certainly are active on our Adapto Fit channel with all of the runs that you do, and your Aussie gear that you wear globally, which is fantastic and hilarious sometimes.
And I'll have to get more of that Roosters gear to travel globally around.
Yes, you will. So Paul, final question: is there anybody that is truly inspiring you at the moment?
Look, I think it's changing quite a bit. Sort of in the past, I'd follow 1 or 2 people, and that would be, where I get a lot of my inspiration from some of the fields of behavioral economics, really insightful for me, for Dan Ariely, etc. Mm-hmm. But now I tend to be listening a bit more broadly, because I'm actually not sure what's going on. Right. And so sort of putting my, feelers out there to get a broader perspective to me is quite important at the moment. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, where I don't think this has changed, but I'm very lucky to work with some amazing clients and getting inspiration from them and some of the senior leaders out there that are leading some of the best organizations in the world. I learn every day from them just as much as they're asking us to solve challenges for them. It's pretty inspiring and lucky. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to travel around the world, is to work with some of the best leaders around the world and learn from them.
Brilliant. Love it. And the way you bring it back to the team and teach us, everything from fruit and veg tugboats is pretty cool. So
fantastic. Thank you.
So Paul, this has been an absolute pleasure. It's always fantastic to have you back in the country and spending time with the team. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we will chat again soon.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks everybody for joining us today, and we will see you again next time.